talk about it. They talk about it. They talk about it. They talk about it. They talk about it.
Welcome back to She Could Talk the podcast. I'm your host, Gangalee. Hey, and that's Gangalee on all streaming platforms. If you're looking for the music, just look for the red glasses, the locks, and you'll find me, okay? Or you could just come over here to YouTube for She Could Talk the podcast, because over here, this is where we react to everything from news, music, sports, crime, politics, YouTubers, TikTokers. If they're talking about it, we're talking about it, okay? Hey. So this episode is very interesting. And I even got a few notes because I got some questions she asked. You know how I do my episodes where I'm like, my spidey senses are tingling and I want you guys to keep me honest. Am I overreacting or what do you think? And I always like you to join the conversation. And by the way, I want to give you all a shout out there. You know what I'm saying? A round of applause for all of you. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, coming back, leaving comments, engaging. Thank you all. Keep it coming. I appreciate y'all. So, back to this episode. It's about stuff that's basically been trending in my algorithms, my timeline for the last couple of days. And I'm like, you know what? I want to react to it, you know? So why not better way than to react to it up here on She Could Talk the podcast and have you all join the conversation, okay? So this is about the dire wolves. Have you heard about that? So let's go back a bit. Do you remember Game of Thrones? I was a Game of Thrones fanatic. Do you hear me? I loved Game of Thrones. So I'm talking about the original with Khaleesi with the dragons, Jon Snow with the dire wolves, you know, like just the whole setup, all the different houses and the different, you know, regions. It was dope. It was a dope show. If you haven't seen it and you're like, you know, whatever, trust me. Because I didn't really get into the second one, like the Fire and Ice and the song, whatever it is. I couldn't really get into the second one because, I don't know, I was a little disappointed with the way the original one ended. I kind of wanted more because it was so much, like, everything. The special effects, the storyline, and then the ending kind of left me a little, like, hanging. But I get it. They wanted to leave a segue for, like, the prelude, the sequel, whatever. But after that, I was really... You know, but maybe I might go back and watch the second, you know, segment of the whole series or the second installation. But if you remember, and still even probably in the second one, dire wolves were a thing. That is the wolf. It's like a big, strong wolf. And this one particular family, Game of Thrones, they had these wolves which represented their house and they were very loyal. So, I mean, each kid had a wolf from a cub and they were like protective of them. They would fight alongside them in battles. They would defend them. They would fight giants, all type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So if you're like a pet owner, a dog owner in particular, like myself, you're probably like, you know what? I would love to have a dire wolf. That's dope. So I wonder if that was some of the inspiration behind this. But also, I have some other questions like as we go on, but we're going to definitely react and comment. Let's get into it. So this is ABC News. They basically were able to get an invite and get an interview with some of the scientists, and they open their doors to them at Colossal Bioscience. So once again, it's Colossal Bioscience, and they're a team of technology and science type of company that is creating dire wolves from like scratch. I don't know. So they're using fossils and DNA of fossils of dire wolves, allegedly paired with gray wolves from present day time, and the surrogate is a dog. So there you go. So all of this is happening, and they got invited, ABC News, to interview the scientists and kind of get a little bit more detail as far as what they have going on. So we're going to get into it. We're going to react, and then, you know, of course, I have some commentary and some questions as we go along. All right.
Tonight, we want to take you inside that stunning scientific breakthrough, the return of the dire wolf. These wolf pups certainly look cute, but beneath all that fur is a fascinating story. Should humans be trying to bring back what's gone extinct or focus on saving what we already have? In tonight's Prime Focus, Maria Villarreal and our team got exclusive access inside Colossal Biosciences lab, where they dreamt up the dire wolf But we also spoke with critics of this technology who worry if humans tinker too much with things, we could risk ruining our planet for good.
Colossal Biosciences says it's brought back an extinct species, the first time ever for humanity. These are dire wolves, well known from HBO's hit show, Game of Thrones.
There are no dire wolves south of the wall.
Another aside.
These animals haven't walked the earth for some 10,000 years.
The direwolf is the first de-extinct species. This is the exogenous development lab, so this is where we're working on the artificial wound.
ABC News given exclusive access inside
Artificial
Colossal's
wound.
state-of-the-art laboratory. Chief Scientist Dr. Beth Shapiro showing us around.
And we scan through the genomes of the two direwolves.
Dr. Shapiro believes the work going on in this small lab could have a big impact on all life on our planet.
Scientists have predicted that by 2050, more than half of species that are alive today could become extinct. I don't want that future.
Colossal has set ambitious goals.
Woolly mammoths, now long extinct, once roamed these northern landscapes in large herds, playing a critical role in the stability of their ecosystem.
Ben Lamb founded Colossal initially on the idea of bringing back the woolly mammoth.
Are you as obsessed with it as everybody else?
Yeah, I am. You know, we had woolly mammoths walking the earth at the same time that humans were building the pyramids.
That idea has gotten
But
Colossal
I gotta pause
a
real
$10
quick.
billion valuation.
I gotta pause real quick. Why? Why do we want, like, so for example, the woolly mammoth and the dire wolves and all of this stuff was in a time where development was different. Wouldn't you say so? I mean, I feel like, you know, maybe there was more land for them. Maybe the environment was, you know, right for them to exist. And maybe when the change in climate or the change in living caused their extinction. Like, I don't know, like, why would you want to bring that back? You know, but let's get back into it.
And a lot of high-profile investors like Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, Peter Jackson.
We're not a foundation. We're not a nonprofit. We're not an academic think tank. You know, we are trying to actually, you know, develop products and build technologies.
Just a few weeks ago, the company announcing the woolly mouse, a
Why?
new type of mouse with a thicker coat of fur,
Why?
modeled after the woolly mammoth.
People love them.
No.
And it just made people come to our website, which maybe made people read about the de-extinction project.
The announcement not without some controversy, with critics saying it's a PR stunt that doesn't actually prove Colossal is any closer to bringing back the woolly mammoth.
The woolly mouse is a proof of technology. It's not a PR stunt. What this proves is that our end-to-end process of taking data from, you know, DNA, identifying genes that drive core traits, and so it is a proof of technology. And then the direwolves are just one step further beyond that.
Colossal keeping their direwolf project secret from the world for more than 18 months.
How did this happen? We're making a list of what are the cool animals that are extinct that people would be interested in, and the direwolf comes up.
At the time, there wasn't
Why?
enough direwolf DNA available to
So-
succeed. Beth's team
I
extracted
gotta pause
higher
real quick.
quality.
Excuse me. Game of Thrones fans, maybe? That's what that sounds like to me. Like, what cool animals? What cool animals? I'm just saying, like, what could possibly, you know, do you guys not watch, I don't know, there's like Black Mirrors out there, so many different things that can, not saying we always want, when you think of development and, you know, growth, you don't want always to think like something bad will happen. You want to be hopeful and you want to say, okay, something great can happen from this. But what is the purpose of bringing back a prehistoric, ferocious, large, strong animal that can be biologically, chemically, and technologically enhanced? I don't know.
DNA from fossils. And what came next was a breakthrough.
At that moment, when we saw those first lines of computer code that told us that we had wolf DNA, I knew we were going to be able to do this project.
Colossal electing to use a gray wolf as the base for their dire wolf.
So we've taken a gray wolf genome, a gray wolf cell, which is already genetically 99.5% identical to dire wolves, and we've edited those cells at multiple places in its DNA sequence to contain the dire wolf version of the DNA. We have an embryo, then we put that embryo into a surrogate mom, and that embryo develops into a fetus and then is born. That animal
It sounds
looks like
nice,
a dire wolf,
and
it will behave
but that's
like
kind
a
of
dire
weird,
wolf,
right?
And it is a dire wolf.
Colossal's chief animal officer, Matt James, is in charge of taking care of the 3 dire wolves, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi.
So there's a lot
Game
of
of
challenges.
Thrones.
Now that the animal is here, it's how do you care for an animal?
Colossal is keeping the dire wolves at an undisclosed location in a 2,000-acre enclosed nature preserve. ABC News asked to see the wolves up close, and Colossal declined.
The responsibility lies on me and my team in order to make sure that those animals live the best life possible.
So I gotta
Experience them.
pause. They said that the animals live on a 200-acre, area that's undisclosed, like an undisclosed location that's 200 acres. What else is on those 200 acres? What else? If it's true, right? If it's true, because it can all be, I'm still on the fence, right? Like a part of me is like, it's a stunt, like a publicity stunt, or they're trying to which I'm going to circle back to because they said something that made me just take a little note. Ambitious goals. Remind me, guys, I'm going to come back to that at the end. But, that's why I'm on the fence, because it could be like an ambitious goal, right? Like a stunt. Or they could really have messed around and did something, right? And do you all remember that movie, The Village, by M. Night Shyamalan? I think that's his name, Shyamalan, from Pennsylvania. Like he did Sixth Sense with Bruce Willis. He did a couple of good movies. He was a real dope director. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, so he had a movie called The Village, and the movie was loosely based about like a village, like a Amish, because Pennsylvania, you have a lot of Amish country, a lot of Amish villages or towns, etc., spread out throughout Pennsylvania. So in a sense, his movies were realistic in that he always based them in Pennsylvania, and he always had a realistic element to it. So you start out the movie feeling like, okay, they're Amish or something in Pennsylvania, and they're living in this village, and they're very like way behind the times, like no technology, like a old school either Amish or like 1882 America type of town, right? But they're a village, and they're in the middle of these woods, and if you go beyond a certain point in the woods, some type of wolf or something would come out and like eat you and kill you, and so anyone who went beyond a certain point died. And that was kind of like the message sent to like, hey, this person was killed. You can't go out that far. So they raised children, had generations and generations of family grown old, and they just lived here in this village for years, right? So something happened, and they were forced to like try and go to another town or something and rough it through the woods to see if they can get help, right, for their people in the village. And a couple of people in one particular, like the main star of the show, they sent her because she was blind, so she couldn't see, so she could feel her way because she grew up there, so she knew her way around. And they said because if she, her other senses are keen, she would be able to make it through and get the help she needs and come back, and the wolf will potentially not get her. But long story short, plot twist, at the end of the movie, realized it was a billionaire who owned about 200 acres, right? And moved his family and friends who just wanted to like disconnect from the real world into this village. So when the girl came out, it's a dude in McDonald's in a truck, like regular modern day, and he was like, you came out of there? I thought that was an animal preserve, a nature preserve. What's going on? And she's like, I need help. And so he ended up taking her to get help. But in the end, that it was just kind of like, wow, what really goes on in the nature preserves, right? Because if you see that movie, The Village, that was a good way to look at it. And then for them to say, just out the blue, they have 200 acres where the dire wolves are at an undisclosed location. Interesting. But it makes you think, what else is out there? What else have they experimented with? And not just colossal bioscience, but just at large, right?
Most optimal welfare possible.
The dire wolves are roughly 7 months old, and Colossal tells us no animals were harmed in their making. The surrogates, 2 dogs, have been adopted through the Humane Society.
So I had all the confidence that this was going to work. You know, we thought really hard about what edits to make to the DNA. The edits that we made them really light colored in coat, and so when I saw them born and they were white, I was like, we've done it. Those are dire wolves.
But not everyone is convinced.
I don't think they are actually dire wolves. I don't think what we have is dire wolves. What we have is something new. We have a mostly gray wolf that looks like a dire wolf. Well, the cool thing about dogs versus wolves is that their skulls are really shortened.
Dr. Julie Meechan is a paleontologist. She's one of the few people in the world who knows as much about dire and gray wolves as Dr. Shapiro.
So I think that if you were to ask me if you could make a dire wolf from a gray wolf, I would say the genetics might not line up.
Inside her lab in Iowa, she shows us gray wolf fossils and explains how the 2 animals diverged millions of years ago.
I would say that they are similar enough that you could probably tweak a gray wolf genome to look like a dire wolf, but you certainly could approximate the dire wolf's appearance using a gray wolf model.
How do you definitively say to them, no, this is a dire wolf?
It's a great question. And this is really a human construct. I think that the best definition of a species is if it looks like that species, if it is acting like that species, if it is filling the role of that species, then you've done it.
Dr. Meechan
fill in
is
the role.
working with
So let me
Dr.
pause real
Shapiro
quick.
on an
Let me just
upcoming
pause right there. So fill in the role. If she said if it looks like the species, acts like the species, then it's fill in the role. But is it the species is the question, right? Like, did you successfully recreate this animal, or did you create something worse? Did you create something that a gene is slightly off that might cause a defect, good or bad? Like, you don't know, right? So if it's true, or is it a stunt? Like, I'm still on the fence. So let's see.
Research paper about dire wolves, but is not paid by or advising Colossal.
My question about the de-extinction events is this for purely entertainment purposes for people? The mission of helping to preserve the species, that is a mission that I could get behind 100%. I think that we need to preserve the species that we still have here on Earth.
Colossal says they are starting to do just that.
We developed a new approach to cloning that we also used to clone 4 red wolves. This is the only endemic American wolf, the most endangered wolf in the world, and we've created 4 of them that can augment the population right now that's surviving because of technologies that we developed on the path to the dire wolf.
There are under 2
So
dozen
they
red wolves
ain't no
left
telling
in
what's on them
Colossal.
acres.
And Colossal is hoping the red wolf is just the beginning for countless animals on the verge of extinction.
This sort of technology, as it becomes more widely available, is going to have tremendous benefits across biodiversity conservation.
We have a moral obligation to try to right some of the wrongs we've done to the planet.
Even some of the company's critics agree this type of work could have a huge impact.
It has the potential to advance our understanding of genetics and of reproduction of animals.
Dr. Robert Kleitzman is a bioethicist and geneticist at Columbia University. And while excited about the dire wolf,
I mean, gee, that's impressive. There's a certain wow factor, like how cool is that, right?
but he does have concerns.
So one wants to be careful if you're mucking around with genes.
Facts.
There may be things we don't understand. You may produce a wolf that's twice as ferocious.
That's what I said.
And this is, of course, the film Jurassic Park from a few years ago showed sort of a science fiction version of we're going to bring back a dinosaur and ends up attacking all of us.
I think where a lot of people's brains are going to go, which is Jurassic Park. There is a part in the movie where Dr. Malcolm says,
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
You know you're the first person who's ever quoted that to me?
No.
No.
I was going to say.
So, I don't know. The more I react to this news interview, this video, This scientist lady over here, the one that's laughing with the short hair, she seems cocky to me. Just my opinion, guys. I could be wrong. I don't know her. I'm not judging. But the vibe I'm getting, she's like, ah. So that's what's further making me lean towards, is it a publicity stunt? But yeah, let me let her finish out, and then I'm going to come back with some commentary.
So you hear that then a lot.
Yes, our motivation is to make extinction a thing of the past. You know, if we decide as a society that these new technologies that are at our fingertips are too risky, that we don't want to take the chance, that we're not going to try
My bad,
to
guys.
save species by implementing genetic engineering types of technologies, that is a choice that also carries consequences.
Colossal is full steam ahead, pledging to bring back the woolly mammoth by 2028.
Is it realistic to say that we really will meet that timeline of 2028?
Yeah, I mean, we're on target for it right now.
And no matter where you stand, the implications are earth-shattering.
Look at that. Like the structure of that with the horns.
Nature is far more complicated than our ability as humans to understand it or to understand all the possible unforeseen consequences.
Is it a stunt?
Right.
This work that we're doing, maybe it's a stunt, you can call it that, but if that stunt is engaging people to think about whether they want a career in science, about being hopeful about the future for biodiversity, I'll do it again and again.
So that
thought-provoking and interesting story. Our thanks to Maria for that.
So that at the end further lets me feel like it might have been a stunt, right? Because maybe they're trying to get people more engaged in technology and science, and this is their way of doing like, hey, look, you could potentially, with science and learning and engaging, you could potentially bring back a direwolf in the future. And maybe they don't have direwolves. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's just stunt. But on the other hand, let's say it's not, right? Because sometimes they'll put things right in front of your face and you're like, oh no. And we'll argue and fight with each other in the comments and be like, it's not true. It's true. It's not. And the whole time it is, right? And we're being distracted with each other while some real stuff is going on. So I just would say, like, why would you want to have dire wolves? Like, why would you want to make some more woolly mammoths? Like, they were huge and roamed in a time where we weren't here. And a lot of development that we have gotten over the years didn't exist. And how would that interact? You know what I'm saying? Like, them going through an infrastructure or a city that's has infrastructure and development, and you just see a big woolly mammoth walking by, ripping through the telephone lines. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I could be wrong, I don't know. But I got a couple of questions. She said, questions, I guess. So she mentioned ambitious goals. Like, this company has a lot of ambitious goals. Do you remember a couple of years ago, there was another company that had ambitious goals that still to this day, and I've seen the documentary and everything. Is it, or was it a publicity stunt? Was it a money grab? Or were they really believing that they were doing something, right? But do you remember the girl, Elizabeth Holmes, the woman, Elizabeth Holmes, and she had a company called Theranos, almost like Thanos, but Theranos, and they were supposed to be like a technology company that also dealt with DNA, and they were supposed to have like the one-drop technology thing where you sample one drop of your blood and it could tell you any disease, any health issues, whatever's going on through one sample of DNA. And you can go to like CVS. I remember they got like a deal with CVS, and it was able to go and like get your... I trust me, I wouldn't do nothing like that. But people were apparently out there doing it, you know what I'm saying? And guess what? Misdiagnosis all around. Misdiagnosis all around. Then come to find out that it was a farce. It was like a money grab and then a stunt, and she got a lot of investments. And I think she ended up, I don't know if she went to jail, but I know it was a court in a legal proceeding that, followed. But look it up, Elizabeth Holmes. This is what my spidey senses is tingling and giving me the vibe of there. And then, let me see here. So Game of Thrones, Jurassic Park. He made a good point, or the interviewer made a good point when she said, did you see Jurassic Park when the actor said, you scientists were so focused on making it work, but they didn't stop and say, should we be doing this? You know what I'm saying? And that's a good thing. Like, that brings back to my question, like, why? Why are you doing this? Because suppose it gets out of control, who's gonna subside a dire wolf roaming free? You know what I'm saying? Like, that sounds crazy. But you know, guys, you know how I do. Join me in the comments and tell me what you feel. Am I overreacting? Was this just a publicity stunt, or is this possible? You know, or is it like The Village? They do got 200 or more acres out there, which is natural preserves or wildlife preserves that might have some interesting things living out there among us, right? So join me in the chat and tell me what y'all think. But until next time, I'm gonna keep it short because I did not want to hold you long on this one, but I wanted to share it because this was in the timeline all week. But you know my motto, guys. I'm gonna leave y'all, but before I do, I have to say, if you like anything I do, tell a friend. If you don't like anything I do, tell a friend, because it does not hurt either way. And from my lips to your ears, you know that I love you, but I need you to love me. So if you can like, comment, subscribe, share, and tell a friend. If you want to throw me a little something in the Cash App, that's She Could Talk. But over here is She Could Talk the podcast, right? So y'all gonna come back, right? And until next time, it's your girl, Gongalee. Peace.